to Story Time with Dad.
Today we're going to be rereading because we actually read this last night, but something was wrong with our microphone, so it didn't pick up any sound. So we're going to be reading the basic life of Ernestine Buckmaster. It's written by Linda Raven Lawton and illustrated by Suzanne Beakey. So it's a reread. We read this yesterday once again, but we didn't have any audio, so we're going to be reading that tonight. All right. Okay. So go ahead and follow along. Okay. I'm going to ask this young man back here to pray so they can actually go to bed. Then I will read. So.
Okay, so I pray for people that like are old and they like live a long life, and like I pray for like the next day we wake up, God will protect us in school or anything we need help with.
Yep.
And in work, God
Okay.
will help us guide through stuff in work.
All right.
And I pray for everyone that like when they wake up, God will protect them.
Okay.
And then I pray for um like if like people are like sick in the hospital or like they have cancer, I pray people like raise money
Yes. To help them. Yep.
to heal the cancer.
Okay.
I pray
That's
people
good.
to
All right.
like run like
That's okay.
chase their dreams.
All right. Good. Good. Good prayer. In Jesus' name. All right. You guys go lay down. Move over and have yourself a good night. So let's get to our story here. And once again, this is The Busy Life of Ernestine Buckmeister. Once again, it's written by Linda Raven Lawton. It starts. Each morning, while Ernestine ate breakfast and Nanny O'Dear prepared lunch, Ernestine's father zoned out to work and called, "Live life to the fullest, Ern." And each morning, Ernestine's mother zipped out to catch the bus and said, "Make every moment count, E." And each morning, Hugo from next door asked, "Ernestine, do you want to play after school?" But Ernestine never had time because her busy, well meaning parents had packed her after school schedule. On Mondays, she sculpted with clay lumpkin. On Tuesdays, she did water ballet with Miss Goldfisher. On Wednesdays, she knitted with Mistress Pearl Stitchum. On Thursdays, she took tuba lessons with Mr. Oompa. On Fridays, she yodeled with little old lady who. On Saturdays, she studied karate with Grandmaster Haya. And on Sundays, she practiced yoga with Guru Prakash Presso. Thank goodness the Buckmasters had Nanny O'Dear to help Ernestine stay on schedule. Nanny made sure Ernestine got to all her classes, but sometimes they were so busy things got confused. When Mr. and Mistress Buckmaster dashed home from work late one night, they noticed that Ernestine looked pale. Maybe she needs some face painting lessons, said Mr. Buckmaster. Nanny O'Dear just said, "Oh dear." On her way to lessons each day, Ernestine slowed down long enough to watch Hugo play in his yard. He flip flopped on his trampoline, giddy upped like a cowboy, and bounced his ball. One afternoon, Hugo shouted, "Look out!" as his ball sailed over the fence and landed in Ernestine's tuba. Whoomp! Ernestine bounced the ball to Nanny and squealed, "Bounce it back." "Oh dear," said Nanny, "it's time for tuba." Ernestine sighed and passed the ball back to Hugo. That night, Ernestine practiced yoga in bed. She inhaled and stared at her busy schedule. She exhaled and thought about Hugo and how he got to flip flop and giddy up and bounce. Then Ernestine had an idea. The next morning, Ernestine announced, I today I scheduled something new. "But you have yodeling," said Nanny. "It's written on my. Have you seen my calendar? And where's my phone?" "Oh dear." Ernestine giddy upped across the yard to the park. "Ernestine," panted Nanny. "Now we'll be late for yodeling, or is it knitting?" Ernestine reached the hilltop and flopped onto the grass, pulling Nanny down with her. "Oh dear," muttered Nanny. "Look," Ernestine sang. Nanny stopped huffing and noticed the valley below. "My, the view is heavenly." "That cloud looks like a pineapple," said Ernestine. "No, a bunny." "Or whipped cream," suggested Nanny. Before long, they were imagining that they were tiny bugs and the world was huge. Then they were pioneers building a twig fort, and Nanny showed Ernestine how to make a daisy crown. Meanwhile, little old lady Who called Mrs. Burmeister to report that Ernestine had missed yodeling. Mrs. Burmeister called Mr. Burmeister. "It's not like Ernestine to get off schedule. I know she's with Nanny, but where could they be?" They tried to call Nanny O'Dear, but she didn't hear her phone. So the Buckmasters set out to find their daughter. "Have you seen Ernestine?" the Buckmasters asked at knitting class. Mr. Stitchum replied without dropping a stitch. "Knit one, purl two. Sorry, I can't help you." They dashed to karate. "Hi-ya!" called the Buckmasters. "Is Ernestine here?" Grandmaster Haya answered, "No," with a flying twist. "Maybe she's at water ballet," called Mrs. Buckmaster. "Is Ernestine here?" She's talking with the with the snuckles in her mouth. The Buckmasters zoomed to Clay Lumpkin's studio. There were lots of children sculpting, but no Ernestine. They rushed to yoga. "Is Ernestine here?" they whispered. Guru Prakash Preso was meditating, and all he said was, um, 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 wondered Mr. Bugmaster. Said Mrs. Bugmaster. Pa, she must be a tuba. Have you seen Ernestine? Mrs. Bugmaster yelled over the blaring horns, but Mr. Ompa didn't hear a word. By the time they looked everywhere, the Bugmasters were dazzled and frazzled. This is what poor Ernestine does every week, Mrs. Bugmaster panted. No wonder she always looks so pale, added Mr. Bugmaster. Then, off in the distance, they heard bubbles of laughter. The Bugmasters trudged up the hill, and there was Ernestine, her cheeks as rosy as apples. Ernestine Marigold Bugmaster, called Mrs. Bugmaster, where have you been? Oh dear, Nanny stuttered. Well, you see, we were right here, Ernestine squealed. It was my idea. We saw pictures in the clouds and rolled down the hill and pretended we were bugs, and then I was a princess. And I want to do it again. The Bugmasters were stunned. I like taking lessons, but can't I stop some of them? Pleaded Ernestine. But how will you live life to the fullest without sculpting and swimming? Asked Mr. Bugmaster. Right, Mrs. Bugmaster agreed. And how will you make every moment count without yoga or yodeling? Like this, Ernestine said. Everyone inhaled. Then they exhaled. My, the view is heavenly, said Mrs. Buckmaster. Since that day, Mrs. Buckmaster bikes to and from work and has taken up gardening. Mr. Buckmaster tries to get home early once a week to build a treehouse, and Nanny O'Dear has discovered the joy of flying kites. As for Ernestine, some afternoons she practices karate with Hugo, and sometimes she plays the tuba, and sometimes she just plays. That's the story for tonight about the busy life of Ernestine Buckmaster. I know we all want to be busy and keeping our kids in a lot of activities, but we should remember that they are children and they should have time to play. All right, so that's the story for tonight. I hope you guys are following along the stories and enjoying it. And what you got to say?
Keep washing and keep reading.
Good job. So, good night to everyone, and God bless you.